Three, two, one.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, etc., etc. Today is May 25th, 2022, day after another terrible shooting in Texas, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to be here for long. Just needed to share some thoughts. Not talking about anything else, just having a conversation that I think is needed. Probably won't be paying too much attention to the comment line, so sorry about that. We'll just get going. Couple things to say about yesterday's shooting and where we're at as a country, as an American people, and as concerned citizens. I would imagine at the end of this conversation that we have, not a lot of people, regardless of your political leanings, are going to feel settled. That's not the point. Spent a lot of time yesterday thinking about how to address this sort of thing. As I've mentioned several times, I'm pretty dang new at this, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be doing in situations like this. This is the first mass shooting of this scale, of this nature, that I've ever been in the public eye for, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure how to handle it. Obviously, emotional reaction yesterday was that this is terrible. This is, unfortunately, one of the worst things that's happened in a long time. If you're not familiar, and for some reason you haven't been following, 21 people killed in a Texas shooting yesterday, right after a shooting in Buffalo, New York, which is something that is happening all too often in the country that we live in. Like I said at the beginning, regardless of your political leanings, I don't think you're going to come out of this conversation settled. There's no sides right now. This is a conversation I think that needs to be had. What happened yesterday was a terrible tragedy, a evil personified in the shooter that decided to kill 21 people, including 19 children in Texas yesterday. There is no amount of condolences that will ever make anything right for the families that are going to be affected by this heinous crime. We can go into details and we can talk about different things, and I'm sure there's a time for that. But yesterday, in watching this unfold and thinking about how I'm supposed to talk about this to you, the audience that watches every single day, which I appreciate you doing so, I'm not entirely sure how to look at this, except for making observations of how politicians reacted, how the media reacted, and how friends reacted to this sort of thing. I think what goes without saying, obviously, clearly, is that we have a problem. I know that's maybe not something that you're used to hearing on a more right-leaning show, but the only thing I care about here, and the only reason I'm doing media stuff, is to be fair about arguments. We have a problem, and it is a mistake for the right to deny that. Yes, mass shootings do happen in other countries, but we have a lot of them, and it does us no good running away from that issue. And so with that, my intention yesterday was to try to understand. And the one thing that I wasn't going to do, especially given the emotional ramifications of the horrific shooting yesterday, was assign malicious intent or bad motives to people who had an emotional reaction. I had an emotional reaction. If you didn't have an emotional reaction, there's something wrong with you. Now, some people manifested that emotional reaction in anger on the internet and online and with their friends and family. And the thing is, I can't blame them for doing so. So I want to talk about the observation that I had of what America did and where we're at and where we need to go, at least in my opinion. Yesterday was an indication for me of why, when these terrible things happen, that we say our platitudes and nothing really changes. The first takeaway I took was that you can't, and just to reiterate, you can't fault people for taking extreme steps, because there are people out there that said we need to do something. We just need to do something, and you can't fault them for that. What happened then is this: we need to do something generally manifests itself in things like gun control. That's been a topic of conversation on this show for a long time, and I don't want to shy away from that conversation. But what inevitably happened was you had people making emotional stances and then putting people on, quote unquote, the other side on the defensive, which leaves us in this muddled gun debate over something that I think is a much bigger issue than that. We've had guns in this country since the beginning. And relative to the history of the country, mass shootings as terrible as this, what happened in Buffalo recently and what happened at the Texas schools, is a new thing. And we need to collectively ask why that is. The problem that I saw yesterday is, again, not faulting anybody because nobody knows what to do. But the problem I saw yesterday was this back and forth gun debate initiated by people who want to do something, and I can't blame them for wanting to do something, but then that puts the other side on the defense, and then where do we go from there? It's back and forth on this gun issue, and this is why, at least me observing this, realized that, holy cow, this is why nothing happens. There is a bigger, more expansive societal and cultural shift that we are entirely ignoring, because the emotion of the event in real time is too powerful to overcome. And because of this, I think we're missing a bigger picture. Everybody, scholars at every institution, of every political bent, of every background, all agree that there is a societal issue. Religious people, conservatives, liberals, atheists, every think tank that does studies on this says that there is a mental problem, a mental crisis in America. And the question is, what are we doing about it? What I saw yesterday is people get muddled into the gun debate. Whether or not we should have more gun control, or whether or not we should have more guns at schools to protect kids. I can see and understand both sides of that argument. But what happens when we continually talk about just the gun control issue is we miss the broader picture. And the broader picture is that in the 50s and 60s and 70s and in times in the past, kids would bring guns to school because they were going hunting afterward, and we didn't have this issue. Something has changed, and we're not addressing it, and we're not talking about it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what the answer is, because the answer is probably a combination of things. And people that are talking about what they believe the answer is don't know either. Nobody knows. And it's definitely, what it definitely is not, is a simple solution that can be made at any level of government or any anything. The simple solution of more gun control is not going to fix our societal problem. The simple solution of more armed security at our schools is not going to fix the problem. Those might be short-term fixes, but like I've said, and I will continue to say, is we have a bigger societal issue. People, for some reason right now, and I don't know the answer, this should be up to people smarter than me to dig into, that understand a little bit more of the human psyche and the mental condition of people that would do these sorts of things. But we're losing out on that conversation because we get stuck in the political back and forth between various ideologies. The one thing that I do want to say and want to make known to everybody, whether you're a conservative, whether you're a liberal, whether you're down the middle, whatever it is that you are, what I want to make abundantly clear is that in almost every single case, in interactions with your neighbors, whether you disagree ideology, whether you disagree what the government should be doing, whether you disagree whatever it is that you're doing, your neighbor is not your enemy. Which is the thing that I think I saw unfold plenty of times. I have friends on every side of the political spectrum, from avowed socialists to right-wing, whatever you want to call them. And the most dangerous reactions that I saw yesterday, and again, this is not to diminish the terrible and awful shooting. That's not what I'm trying to do. But of the reactions of different people, I saw the ability to have this go and devolve into, well, this side is bad and this side is bad. That's not the case. In 99.999% of interactions, your neighbor is not your enemy. Now, I can't say that about politicians and people that feed in the media limelight. But in the overwhelming interactions that you have with average Americans just like you, just like me, they almost never have malicious intent. The person that wants gun control and is tweeting about gun control and is posting on their Instagram story about gun control is not doing it to go after you personally. The person that wants security guards armed at every school in America is not doing it to go after you personally. What they're doing is trying to find solutions. And what we can't let happen is believe that our neighbor is our enemy just because they have a different solution than us. That's one of the bigger problems we actually do have, societally and culturally. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not going to pretend to know what the solution is. But I know in the long term, we need to get past the ideological bickering on an issue-to-issue basis, because the bigger, broader issue of the division of what we're going through right now can probably be cited for a lot more of the problems than just these terrible, awful mass shootings. There is a proverb, Proverbs 18:2. Maybe you're not religious, but this is what something in the Bible says. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing personal opinion. If you're not seeking to understand where the other side is coming from, especially in heated conversations like this, you're not doing anybody any good. My hope that through this we can recognize how heated the sides are and work towards solutions that actually benefit the culture and society that we are currently existing in. Yes, we can talk about the gun argument. Yes, we can talk about school safety, and we should. We have to. But I don't know what the solution looks like in the short term. The long-term solution, however, is being able to understand that our neighbor is not our enemy. And even though we might disagree on how to get to a certain place of prosperity for yourself and for everyone, even though we might have different ideas of how to get to the American dream, we all have that same goal in mind: to create a better society for ourselves and our future. The conversation is going to get wild over the next couple of days. Just keep that in mind. Your neighbor is not your enemy. Everybody's trying to find a solution. That's going to do it for us. We'll get back to covering some stuff tomorrow. God bless America.